Good evening, everybody. With Hashem's love and grace, we are from the land of Israel. Baruch Hashem, glad to see everyone. We're now in the midst of the 3 weeks, and one of a special lesson that covers both 3 weeks and gives us perspective of a time frame where we're living and the current events that are happening all around us. And today's lesson is entitled "Take It to Heart." Why take it to heart? It's based on a pasuk. It's based on a passage in Ecclesiastes in Kohelet from chapter 7, verse 2. And King Solomon, who is the wisest of all men that ever walked the earth, he says it's better to frequent the house of fasting than it is to frequent the house of mourning, than it is the house of feasting. And tov bet ha'evil mibet ha'mishte. Okay, in other words, it's better to visit a mourner and encourage a mourner than it is to go to the pub and have a beer. Right? That's obvious. Okay, but then he says something significant right after that. After he tells us that it's better to go to the house of a mourner than it is to go to the bar, he tells us, and the living should take it to heart. What does the King Solomon mean that the living should take it to heart? We understand this in a couple of different ways. He says, "Ve'achai yikach libo." He says the living will take it to heart. It means that if a person doesn't take to heart what's going on around him, he's dead. In other words, if you're alive, then you take to heart what you see. Why do you take to heart what you see? You'll get the answer right in the beginning of Likutei Moran. Rabbi Nachman says that a person should see the divine wisdom in everything. What's the divine wisdom in everything? The divine wisdom in everything means that you look at everything that's happening in your life. It's a message from Hashem, a wonderful message from Hashem, because Hashem runs the world in precision, divine providence. In other words, really precision. Everything that's happening is something Hashem wants us to pay. It says there's no such thing as happenstance in Hashem's universe. And this is in opposition to what many of the physicists say, that it's random and things are up. There's nothing random in Hashem's world. Everything is the exact precision result of Hashem's personal supervision, which we call divine providence, over every one of us particularly, and all of us as whole. So we have to ask ourselves, right now we're in the 3 weeks, and we have to understand everything we're saying now, and all the Torah we're going to mention and that we're going to cite are Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar gives us a lesson. He says, anyone that thinks that the Torah is a set of stories or it's a history book, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who loved every Jew so much that the Gemara says you can always depend on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that their inside should turn inside out. In other words, a big curse. In other words, the Torah is something we live by. And I'll explain something else, very important. We have in the Tanakh, it's brought down 48 prophets. Okay, 48 prophets. But there were hundreds of prophets throughout Jewish history, hundreds of prophets. How come they don't come down? Well, the ones that our sages codified within the Chumash, one of our sages codified within the Tanakh. Tanakh is Torah, Nevi'im, Tuvim, which is the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. The writings include Ecclesiastes and Shir HaShirim and the Megillas. So the ones that were included there are the ones that have a universal message. That in everything Ecclesiastes tells us, and everything prophets tell us, and everything King David tells us in Psalms, you can see a person that reads Psalms with kavod, they come alive. It's all universal. So King Solomon is giving us a message that applies right now for COVID-19. And if we could see a person, it's not just happenstance. COVID-19 is not only a lesson for the Jewish people and lesson for the world, it's a lesson for each one of us individually. And there is not a single one, look at not a single one that doesn't know somebody that was in the hospital, that was very sick with COVID. I'm sure every one of us knows a family that lost a loved one because of COVID. I'm sure almost every one of us had to pick up the phone, if not personally, because it's difficult personally because of lockdown and quarantine and whatnot, to do a condolence call by telephone or by email. Every single one of us knows somebody who lost someone, or knows personally a friend or someone that lost a loved one during COVID. So why is Hashem doing this? Hashem is a loving Father in heaven. And the three words of Emunah, we give a three-stage mindset, which everything comes from Hashem. And who is Hashem that everything comes from? That's Hashem, my loving Father. So if everything comes from Hashem, and if Hashem is a loving Father, therefore, number three, that everything is for the best. So how can this be for the best? That people are sick, people are ill, people are dying, and even so, people that are healthy with all this sickness and a pandemic. See, all this time, and you could see this, and everyone, I know it's really a bit busy lately because so many people have issues of latent anxiety, even though people that are usually normally calm. You can't be on the battlefield calm. There's no such thing as being calm on the battlefield because people are getting hurt all around. And a person always has in the back of his mind, what's the next bomb? Who's the name on the next bullet or the next bomb or whatever? In other words, you don't relax. What we don't realize, what's going on in ourselves, beloved brothers and sisters, there has not been time for relaxation. And inside, sometimes we snap at each other. Sometimes we feel weird. We feel weird all of a sudden. We feel tired, or we lack energy. And the energy that we normally have, we don't have. We don't fly out of bed in the morning. All this is the product of latent anxiety. We don't believe. Okay, so number one, don't persecute yourself. You're 100% normal, okay? You've got big challenges in your life without even realizing it. But why is Hashem doing it? Why is Hashem doing this such utter, tremendous, big challenge right now? Well, the Gemara tells us that in the nations of the world, Hashem punished them right away, okay? In other words, there were the Vikings. There's no more Vikings. There was the USSR. There's no more USSR. After perestroika, everybody's no more. USSR is defunct. Okay, there was ancient Greece and Macedonia. The Greece of today is not ancient Greece. The Rome of today is not ancient Rome. There's no more ancient Rome, no more ancient Greece, no more ancient Babylon. Take civilization one by one, one by one. It's not the same thing. Why? Because that's it. But there's still the Jewish people. We are still the same Jewish people that came out of Egypt. We're still the same Jewish people that got the Torah on Sinai. So this is our tribulations. The Gemara in Tractate Bracha says that Hashem treats us like a chicken chasing off her feathers, shaking off her feathers. Kapicha Tanagolet. Hashem says also that it's written in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah as well. Like if you ever seen a chicken, and she cleans herself by, she shakes off her flowers and she takes off her feathers and all the dirt, the dust comes off. And that's what Hashem does to us, but he gives us a rectification little by little. Now our sages say, when Mashiach has to come, when it's time for Mashiach to come, Hashem doesn't have any more time. So he does it right away. I'll give you an example. In peacetime, if you're in the army, basic training depends on combat basic training is 3 months the first part, then 3 months the second part. And if a person makes it to officer school is 6 months. In the middle of a war, everything is shortened. Everything is shortened. Basic training, they take the guy, 4 weeks, he's out. He's out in the battlefield. And even officers training, they have a quick officers training that it's 3 months instead of 6 months. Do things much quicker. So Hashem has to expedite. Why? Because Isaiah the prophet tells us in chapter 60, Bitu Achishena, the 2 words. He says the Mashiach will come in its time. So our sages say it's going to come, or it's going to come in its time. What are the other? So he will come quickly if we're righteous and we keep the Torah. And it's going to come in its time anyway, because if we're not, as an entirety of Jewish people, we're not righteous enough, then Hashem has to clean us up. That's what's happening right now. And we're talking about all of us, where the Jews all over the world, And Hashem is preparing us for Mashiach. Why is he preparing Mashiach? The only way to get through COVID-19 and the only way to get through this latent anxiety is to hook into Hashem. Hashem, you're my beloved Father in heaven. Hashem, you're doing everything for the best. Okay, so let's go back to King Solomon's advice. What did he mean by visiting the mourner and not going to the bar? Okay, it says that when we see people sick and we see people dying and we realize that this can happen to us, we start thinking, wait a second, I better clean up my act. I better clean. Am I okay? Am I doing everything so that Hashem could reward me and not punish me? In other words, am I doing anything wrong? If a person, for example, has pain in his mouth, they said one of the things in COVID that takes your taste buds away. That's one of the first symptoms right away. So what's Hashem telling us? I mentioned in last week's shiur how terrible slander is and evil speech, especially slander about Hashem and slander about the land of Israel. And so wait a second, maybe it's a message, my mouth, the Sefer Haredim, Rabbi Elazar Askari, he writes about the 613 mitzvahs corresponding to the 613 parts of the body. And we just mentioned about Hashem's amazing divine providence. So if a person losing his taste buds, or he's got pain in his mouth or somewhat, well, maybe something is wrong with the mouth. Maybe use the mouth improperly. So now the mouth is not functioning. Okay, so could very well be. So this is the thought process that a person should go. And this is what cures a person. It's not the medications, not anything. And we see COVID, there's no medications. Everybody today somebody in Israel came, we've got a medication. And then for one day, their stock goes up on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And then tomorrow they see, there was no research to do it, that goes back down. People, they're looking for something. People are trying to grab something, but not to leave comfort zone, not to leave their current lifestyle, and not to do tshuva. But the whole purpose is Hashem wants us to do tshuva. So people get bogged down. I'll give you an example. So this is what King Solomon says. Take it to heart. What you see going on, take it to heart. In Israel, there's an expression in Hebrew, al tikach lev, don't take to heart. They say, don't take to heart, eat, drink, and be merry. There's a type of fatalist, secular outlook. No, tomorrow we're going to go into war, and tomorrow you're going to kill no war. So today we're going to eat, drink, and marry. No, that's not what Hashem wants from us. Hashem wants, hayom min bekolo tishmo. Today you should listen to his word. Hayom, in Tzavcha Hayom, we say in Kriya Shema, that Hashem commands us today not to take it to heart. It's the exact opposite. King Solomon says, yes, take it to heart. So let's ask ourselves, hold it. King Solomon is sending us to the house of the mourner so that we'll take to heart that someday we might die. Ooh, someday we might die. And there's nobody that happens to run away or to escape from that fate. Everybody, you look at it, every day is a day's closer. I don't mean to be a fatalist, chas v'sholom, because we serve Hashem b'simcha. But what does it mean a day closer? And otherwise, if a person just thinks of it that way, he could be depressed. What's it take it to heart? In other words, when I know, what does Hashem want me to understand? He wants me to understand that my physical life is finite. What keeps the smile on my face, even in the midst of COVID, when I know that laser is not a body, okay, it's not a body. The body will be depressed all the time because as you go, for example, there's no comparison between my physical condition when I was 65 6 years ago and my physical condition when I'm at today. But the weight I could lift 6 years ago and the speed I could run 6 years ago, what I could do now. You realize you have to go, now I'm not lifting weights anymore, doing Pilates, doing yoga, doing stretching, doing balance. Okay, what exercise proper for a 71-year-old? If I try to be a macho thinking I was still 25, I'd injure myself right and left. But if for a person who's a body and all his life is a body and he gets older, is it depressed? And you see people you get depressed and depression leads to Alzheimer's and a lot more. It's been research done that the dementia and Alzheimer's, that the more a person is bodily oriented. I'll take you to Yerushalayim, to an old age home, a Hasidic old age home, and you'll see two 93-year-old guys arguing in the Gemara. They're learning Gemara and they're yelling at each other. They're best friends, but they're learning Gemara together, arguing. What do they do in the old age home? They're learning Gemara. They're using their brain all the time. Their brain is very alive. Their brain is like a 25-year-old. And this is their lives. They live a full life. This is what Hashem wants. So wait, let's ask ourselves. Hashem is sending us to the mourner's house so that we'll learn something about death. Wait a second. What about the doctors and the nurses and the undertakers that handle death all the time? You think they'd be the biggest tzaddikim. But you see, there's doctors that not necessarily, they don't believe in Hashem, and there's nurses that don't believe in Hashem, and there's people that are geriatric workers or work in old age homes that they don't believe in Hashem. They live all the time with death and sickness. And what's going on? It's because they listen to Ecclesiastes. You should take it to heart. They don't take it to heart. So we'll go something even further. What's all this got to do with the 3 weeks? I'm going to tell you a lesson in Gemara. I love to bring the Gemara alive. And I have to stop and think a matter of priorities. This is what Hashem wants. There is a Gemara. There's certain segments of Torah that we're allowed to learn on Tisha B'av. The big picture on Tisha B'av, we're not allowed to learn Torah because Torah gladdens the heart. For a lot of people, Torah is heavy. Okay, if the Torah is heavy on your brain, it means you're not learning, because King David says, "Pekudei Hashem yesarim mesamchei lev," that the words of Torah are straight, they gladden the heart. So if a person is learning, if a person has joy in his learning, okay, good. My brother, my sister, you're learning Torah like you should. But if a person thinks, oh, this is heavy, this is something I've got to do, this is just an obligation. No, that's not Torah. That's not Torah. So because Torah gladdens the heart, we're not allowed to learn Torah on Tisha B'av. But we're allowed to learn the prophecies of Jeremiah that talk about the destruction of the Second Temple. We're allowed to read about the Holocaust. We're allowed to read about the destruction of the Second Temple. We're allowed to learn the pages in Gemara Gittin. That's in between page 54 in the Gemara Gittin and page 58 that describe everything that happened in the destruction of the Second Temple. We're allowed to read Eicha, Lamentations. It was also Lamentations, the book of Lamentations. It was compiled by Jeremiah the prophet. Jeremiah witnessed the destruction of the first temple. Jeremiah was exiled to Babylon with the Jewish people. Jeremiah saw all this. He saw all the destruction. And Jeremiah didn't have an easy life, but I'm talking about Jeremiah, don't get sidetracked. The Gemara tells us, I'm going to tell you a story from this part of the Gemara in Tractate Gittin that the Gemara teaches us a lesson. First of all, the Gemara talks about, what's the Gemara wants to teach us a lesson about who am I, body or soul, and what are my priorities in life? What should I be doing in life? Where should I be investing my life? In other words, how do I get off the rap of the anxiety in COVID and get myself happy? If I get myself happy, what's a COVID? COVID-19, coronavirus, it's a threat to my body. It's not a threat to my neshama. COVID-19 can't rob it can rob a person of his breath. And if a person can't breathe, then he certainly can't sit down and learn Torah if he's grasping for breath. But on the long run, it's not a threat to the soul. It's a threat to the body. Okay. But if the more a person is spiritually oriented, the less he's scared by the COVID, the less he takes it unless he's threatened. Okay. So the Gemara is telling us a story, and we're about to hear a story that gives us body, soul priorities. Okay, body, soul priorities. First of all, before I tell this Gemara, I'm going to go to the end of the Gemara. When the end of the Gemara tells about the three richest men in Yerushalayim. The three richest men in Yerushalayim were Nakdemon ben Gurion. Nakdemon ben Gurion, he provided all of Yerushalayim with water. And Hashem did for him miracles. He was super wealthy. He took all his wealth to give water to everyone that had water. And we're talking about the siege of Jerusalem. The Romans had Jerusalem surrounded, nobody in, nobody out. Jerusalem has a limited sources of its own water. You have to go outside the walls of Jerusalem to get water, because inside walled ancient Jerusalem, there's a few wells, but not enough for all the people. There were millions of people at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple. So there was a drought in Israel for 3 years, and there was no more water. So Nakdemon went to a person who owned some springs, like Pennsylvania Spring bottled water. He owned a spring, an unlimited spring. Okay, and Nakdemon said he wanted the water, but he didn't have the money to pay for it. And he signed a promissory note, like he mortgaged all his properties for that thing. So the guy says, okay, you've got 30 days to pay me, 30 days to pay me. And if you don't pay me in 30 days, then you're in big trouble. Okay, so the 30th day came and Nakdemon didn't pay. And the sun was up in the sky and the sun was going down and down and down. It was after Mincha already. It was late afternoon. So the rich guy who owned the Pennsylvania Springs, he sent a message to Nakdemon, pay up, brother. Come on, pay up. He didn't have the money. So he went to Hashem. He said, Hashem, you've got to help me. You got to help me. And what happened, to make a long story short, about 15 minutes before sundown, the clouds came all over Yerushalayim, 3 years no rain, and there was a torrential downpour that filled up all the reservoirs of Jerusalem, filled up everything, all the reservoirs, and filled up this guy's water, Nakdemon Ben Gurion. If he gave the guy the water back, he wouldn't have to pay the money. So he gave all the water back. Okay, but the guy says, he sent another message with his servant, you still got to pay because the sun's gone down. So what does Hashem do? He cleared the clouds and the sun was still there. He says, no, it's not. It's not the end of the 30th day. So Hashem did for Nakdemon Ben Gurion the same miracle that he did for Joshua in Givon, Shemesh Begivon Dom, when Joshua made the sun stand still so he could defeat the Canaanites. He did that one thing. He did the same thing. That's Nakdemon Ben Gurion. And the second rich guy was Kalbo Ben Savoa. He was Rachel's father. Rachel was Rabbi Akiva's wife. And when Rachel married Rabbi Akiva was a farm worker. He worked on Kalbo's out in his fields. And he disowned Rachel, and he took her off his will and everything. But then when Rabbi Akiva became a big Talmud Chacham, he gave Rabbi Akiva half his thing. Okay, and the third one was Ben Tzitzit Keshet. Ben Tzitzit Keshet. So what happened? Kalba Ben Savoa, he provided flour for all Yerushalayim. Ben Tzitzit Keshet provided wood for all Yerushalayim. So they had wood and flour. They could bake bread. They had water, wood, flour. It was enough to keep Yerushalayim alive and fed for the next 25 years. But what happened? The zealots, the rabble-rousers, we have the same around today. The rabble-rousers, the ones that throw in rocks and me'asharim and this and that just make it bad for everybody. They had that back then. So they wanted, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and the wise men wanted to make peace with the Romans. They said, look, this is not our time. It's not the might of our right hand. It's better that we should learn Torah better. We should make peace. And they said, no, we don't recognize them. We don't recognize them, this and that. And so what they did is they burned all the flour. They burned the wood. They spilled the water. And they made the Jews starve, the zealots. They called the Sikarikim. They made the Jews starve so that they would have to either die or fight the Romans. Okay, so they have the same thing today. Then you have the Agudat Yisrael. They said, okay, listen, we're not strong. We have to get along with the government today, even though it's not our government. We're waiting for King David. We're waiting for King David's government. Okay, but until Hashem sends us Mashiach, King David, we have to do what we do. They always knew how to go and, okay, accept everything with peace. But no, there's a zealot. So we have the same thing today. Same exact thing today. Okay. So now the Gemara tells us about the richest woman in Yerushalayim. Okay. And her name was Martha Bas Betus. So big question. Hold it. Gemara, when you just said the three richest men in Yerushalayim, you didn't mention Martha. Martha had money than all of them. She had more money than all of them. So how come you didn't mention her? Oh, it's a big question. Big question. We're going to answer this question. So what does the Gemara tell us about Martha? There's a big difference. We see with Nakdemon Ben Gurion And we see with Kalba ben Savor, Rachel's father, Rabbi Akiva's father-in-law, and we see with Ben Tzitzit the Keshet, that they used their fabulous wealth for the good of the people. And Martha, she was so rich. Martha lived, at the time of the temple, there was Upper Jerusalem and Lower Jerusalem, where King David is buried today in Mount Zion. That was Upper Jerusalem. Upper Jerusalem was a very fancy neighborhood and all rich people and big mansions. And Lower Jerusalem, that's where the temple was, and that's where the Kohanim lived. But the fancy residential district was Upper Jerusalem. And people would say, that's a Jerusalem of gold. It like glittered. It was like glittered. Martha Bat Betus was so rich. She was from a super rich family of Kohanim. They had tons of money. They had tons of political clout. They were a very powerful family. At the time, Yanai the Melech, Yanai was king of Israel. Yanai was a mafia king. Yanai did not like criticism, and the wise men, they criticized him, so he killed them one by one. The only one of the wise men that was still alive in Yerushalayim was Shimon ben Shattach. Shimon ben Shattach was Yanai's brother-in-law. Yanai was married to Helene, Queen Helene, and Shimon ben Shattach hid, not because Yanai let him live. He would have killed his own brother-in-law too, because he didn't want criticism. And all the Torah scholars were criticizing him because he was doing things against Torah. In those days, we learned, and that this was the time of the Second Temple. In the time of the Second Temple, there were over 150 Kohanim Gedolim, over 150 high priests. Why? Because they were political appointments, and this was, there were times when Yerushalayim was not so upright. And when Hashem had to destroy the Holy Temple, it wasn't for nothing. Hashem's got unbelievable patience, but what was going on at that time was terrible. But if a high priest wasn't worthy, he would go in the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, and he wouldn't come out. He wouldn't come out alive. They'd have to drag him out, because if a person, a high priest, is not worthy, he can't come into Kodesh HaKodashim and light the Ketorah and come out alive. No way. And that's why they used to celebrate. We say it in our Yom Kippur prayers, Malek Cohen, about when a Cohen would come out alive from this really, like he would, a tonefall of Israel, and he would come out alive because he was righteous, and he would shine with divine countenance, with divine light on his head. Malek Cohen, it was like looking, the tefillah says, the Yom Kippur tefillah says, it would, like he was shining, like the sun shining on a rose. This is what the Cohen's face looked like, the sun shining on a rose. Beautiful prayer. Okay. So Helene was so rich, she lived in Upper Jerusalem, that the path from Upper Jerusalem, when she would go to the Beis HaMikdash, her servants would put down carpet, silk carpet, so that her feet would not have to touch the ground. That's how rich she was. She would not touch the sidewalk. She would walk on the sidewalk. Her servants would lay out a silk carpet. This is how rich she was. Okay, so what happened with her? The Gemara in Tractate Yevamos tells her that she was so rich. Her fiance was Yeshua ben Gamla. Yeshua ben Gamla was a really good guy. He was a Kohen, and he was a regular Kohen. But after she got engaged to him, she was a widow. She was a young widow, a nice-looking widow, very rich. And Yeshua ben Gamla was the guy she wanted. And she didn't give him a chance to say no. She actually grabbed him. And then she took a whole truck full of gold pieces, and she went to Yanai, and she says, here, Yanai, your next high priest is my fiance, Yeshua ben Gamla. Oh, okay. So Yanai said, okay, fine, with such a bribe. This is the way the high priest was. And Martha, you didn't say no to her. She told the king what to do. She had political clout, like the rest of her family, the Betus family. And Martha Bat Betus is a password in the Gemara when you want to talk about a super rich jet set woman. You know, you don't have to say Ivanka Trump or whatever. You say Martha Bat Betus. The Gemara says this a couple places. That's the Gemara in Yevamos. Go back to the Gemara in Gittin. The Gemara in Gittin tells us a story about Martha Bat Betus. Yerushalayim is under siege. People are dying of starvation. She is so out of it, which they take to heart. She is so out of it. She is so into her mansion and into her things and with her 1,254 pairs of shoes and whatever she got. And she says to her butler, he says, go to the marketplace and get me some solet. Solet is fine, pure, I think you call it in America, farina. Fine, pure as flour. Okay, go get me farina. So the butler goes to the market and he comes back and he says, there's no more farina. She said, okay, well, get me white flour. He goes to the market and he comes back and he says, there's no more white flour. Which is, well, get me black flour. You know, black flour was the whole wheat. It's what the poor people eat. It's with everything. Today it's whole wheat. People like whole wheat healthy, but back then it was everything inside of it, the chaff, the straw, the seed, everything, all ground together. Give me some black flour. Black flour. No, he comes back. He says, madam, there's no black flour left. She says, well, get me some barley. Barley, back then in ancient Israel, barley was fat food for the donkeys, food for the cattle. So he goes, comes back, no more barley. So she was barefoot. She was walking around her kitchen, and she says, what, there's nothing to eat? I'm going to go find myself. So she went out on the sidewalk barefoot for the first time, and she stepped on a piece of donkey dung or something like that, horse dung, and it was so disgusting to her that she died. She fell right there. Okay, so on that, there's a passage in Lamentations about her, and the passage in Lamentations says that Anuga shekaf ragla lo naga, that the spoiled girl whose the sole of her foot never touched the ground, that she's dying of starvation. This was talking about the Jeremiah the prophet was alluding to what's going to happen. This was a curse in the Torah. If we look at Kitavo, at chapter 28 of the book of Devarim, chapter 28, it says, the tender and delicate woman among you who would not adventure for the sole of her foot upon the ground because of her delicateness and tenderness, that she finished it. This was one of the things. And then when they heard, the word came that Martha bat Bitus, she's not living, she got killed. Then Yochanan ben Zakkai, he quoted that particular passage. Okay, so now we can see what. Oh, I forgot to tell one part of the story. Before she went on the sidewalk and she saw there was nothing to buy and she went to look for something, she took all her gold and she threw it out on the street and she said, "There's no more use for this. I got nothing to eat. No more use for this gold." And then she went on the sidewalk and she died. Okay, right after that. She took everything. Her whole life was to amass money and power. She did not give tzedakah. She was not like, why she's not mentioned with the three people? Because the three people that mentioned, the three richest people in Yerushalayim, they are the ones who understood why Hashem gave them riches. If Hashem gave them riches, it's to do good for the Jewish people. It's to do good for the people of Yerushalayim. And that's exactly what they did, not her. She used her money for her own power and for her own wealth. Once again, the Gemara says, it praises her husband. Her husband, Yeshua ben Gamla, this is crazy because usually husband and wife go together, but Yeshua ben Gamla, the Chachomim, our wise men, that had good things to say about him. He was an upright guy. But he just shows you that he couldn't do much against her. And why was it mentioned? Because there was a question among the Chachomim. Wait a second, how can he become high priest? She's a widow, and a high priest is not allowed to marry a widow. So then the halacha comes out that if a Kohen gets engaged to a widow, a Kohen is not allowed to get engaged to a divorcee, but he's allowed to get engaged to a widow. A high priest is not allowed to marry a widow. But if the Kohen was engaged already to the widow, engaged means that it's already a word, not like engagement today. Engagement back then was just like Kiddushin. We do engagement and Kiddushin, both under the chuppah. Okay, but then engagement was the whole thing. It was very formal, even before the wedding. They were formally engaged, and it was halachically binding. And even an engaged girl like that, today an engaged girl is not considered another person's wife. But if she's engaged formally, like the way halacha says to get engaged, then she's considered a shadish, another person's wife. The person that anybody touches her, that's a death penalty. But we, like I said, we do this right under the chuppah. We do chuppah and kiddushin. We do erusin. This is called erusin. So since she was engaged to him, or he was engaged to her, and he became Kohen, he became High Kohen Gadol. Once he was already engaged to her, then they said that's okay, and that's the way halacha came. But it was a big argument back then. Okay, what's the Gemara tell us about Martha? Martha, look what happened to your life. You lost it. Look what happened to what you did with your life, with all your gold. You lost it. It doesn't help you. Look what happens. Can you imagine the honor guard and the band and everything and the millions of angels singing the praise of Ben Tzitzit, Keshet, and Nachdimon Ben Gurion, and Kalba Ben Savoy? Look what they did with the riches. Nothing but good. Altruism, philanthropists. Fantastic. And look at Martha. And look what happened. This is what King Solomon is saying. And take it to heart. My brother, my sister, take it to heart. What's going to happen with all the money we're worried about? What's going to happen with everything? Well, now look what Hashem is doing. Hashem is taking money away from all of us. Hashem is taking parnasa away from so many people. Hashem is taking health, so many people. Hashem is taking all the physical blessings and amenities. I say they are blessings, the big blessings, sure. Parnasa, the big blessing, parnasa and health. Your income and your health are two of the biggest blessings you could be. But a person can take atomic power and light up the city of New York, and take atomic power and blow up the city of New York. People would do good things with their blessings. So we look what the three rich men did with their blessing and what Martha did with her blessing. So their blessing is for eternity. The Gemara praises them, and they're praised forever and ever and ever. And what happened? And look at Martha. And she's an example of Miss Jet Setter that, hey, lady, nothing's left of your Monte Carlo lifestyle. A Monte Carlo lifestyle for Jerusalem, not that. Nothing's left of it. That's take it to heart. That's what King Solomon's taking us. And now we have the same exact message with COVID-19. My beloved brother, my beloved sister, take it to heart. Why is Hashem taking away people's income? Why is Hashem taking away people's health? Hashem is showing us, my beloved son, my beloved daughter, I don't want you to be like Martha Bat Betus. Hashem is telling us we don't want you to be like that. So people are, well, I want more money and I want more this, I want more that. Where's the wish before you go to bed at night? Hashem, let me understand my Torah. Hashem, help me daven better. Hashem, help me get close to you. How many people are begging Hashem for parnasa? Hashem, give me money, give me this. Sure. Legitimate. You got to feed a family. You have to feed a family. But ultimately, the more you hold on, I'll give you an example. You want money? That's fine. You want money? Ask Hashem, Hashem, give me more trust in you. Give me more trust. What do you care where the money comes from? What do you care whether it comes from your work or whether it comes from a windfall? What do you care whether Hashem sends your bread, whether you go to the supermarket, whether Hashem sends it right to your doorstep, like the manna in the desert? In fact, it's really sweet when Hashem sends it right to your doorstep. It's really sweet when you have a lovely backyard garden and you've got all these beautiful tomatoes and peppers and nice spices and everything, some little wind chimes and a beautiful backyard garden. You go right in your backyard garden and you eat your tomatoes right off the vine. Hashem is putting this right in your backyard. You don't need the supermarket. You don't need anything. That's so beautiful. And it's just so lovely. So if Hashem brings your backyard garden right into your kitchen, what do you care? What do you care how the tomato comes to your kitchen? Okay, but it's a blessing. It's a much bigger blessing. Hashem brings it right to your kitchen. No, but people want it. I want it in my bank account. I want it in greenback dollars. A dollar? Why? The dollar's just going down and down. We can't trust the dollar. We can't trust the dollar. And look what Hashem is doing. Hashem wants us to take it to heart, to take the message to heart. What is the outcome of all the material aspect of my life? Hashem doesn't expect us to be nuns and monks in a monastery. That's not Judaism. That's not Judaism. Hashem wants us to enjoy life. Hashem wants us to have a nice Shabbos table. Hashem wants us to have the best cut of meat and the beautiful challahs and nice food, nice bottle of wine, $100 bottle of Eretz Yisrael wine. Yeah, Hashem wants it. Hashem wants a person's Shabbos table like that. A person says, Hashem, help me have bitachon. Help me trust you. That's much different than asking Hashem, give me parnasa. Hashem will give you parnasa. Hashem will give you parnasa. But what do we say in Birkat HaMazon? Ki ein machsol lire'av. That those who fear him, they're not lacking anything. They're not lacking anything. So this is what we ask. We ask for Amunah. Hashem, give me Amunah. Hashem, give me bitachon. If this is what we really and sincerely ask for, you're going to get parnasa. You're going to get parnasa. And I see it time and again, time and again, time and again. Because a lot of people that speak to many more people than I do normally. And you see it. It's to look at things through physical eyes. Like I can't stay saying. I gotta. I take things to heart. Take things to heart. I can't. I'm not like there are doctors and there are lawyers that could divorce themselves from their clients. I can't do that. I can't do that. Take my clients to heart. I feel my clients. People that turn to me, I feel them. And here it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. A guy can't pay his electric bill. Breaks my heart. Okay, so what can we do? What's Hashem doing? Hashem's a loving Father. So if you can't pay your bill, why is Hashem doing that? Because maybe we've got an inclination of being like Martha Bat Bitus. Maybe Hashem wants us to be a little more like Nakdimon. Maybe if we would do with our money and properly give enough meiser and give enough, some people even give enough homish. If you're going to be a millionaire, you don't give meiser, you don't give 10%, you give 20%. But that requires bitachon. Okay. I know people that give 20% of their gross income. It's mind-boggling. But these kind of people, they're wealthy. The bitachon, live on bitachon. And there's some people that can't part with 2% of their money. Okay. But maybe if a person, Hashem says, Hashem's got no problem. He knows a guy with all his heart wants to build a mikveh for $1 million. Okay. Hashem says, fine, I know this guy's going to do it. So Hashem gives him $10 million. He says, put 9 in your pocket. 1 is mine. You want to build a mikveh in Miami? Fine, go ahead. But here's $1 million. Go build a mikveh. Okay, Baruch Hashem. So if you're a loyal trustee of Hashem, Hashem will give it to you. That's take it to heart. Take it to heart. What's happening around me? What's happening? Now, why take it to heart? What's take it to heart mean? King Solomon wants us to observe. Now, let's look this coming week, Baruch Hashem. That's why this is our monthly 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time shiur. Because it's always the month before Shabbos Mevorchim, the Wednesday before Shabbos Mevorchim. This coming Shabbat, we're blessing the month of Menachem Av. Okay, but the week after that is the Shabbat before Tisha B'av, and it's called Shabbat Chazon. It's called the Sabbath of the Vision. Why it's the Sabbath of the Vision? Because the first 2 words of the prophet Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, are Chazon Yeshayahu. And this is the Haftorah we read on Shabbat Chazon. Okay, Chazon Yeshayahu. And Yeshayahu talks to the people, he chastises the people why the temple is about to be destroyed. And what's going to happen? This is a prophecy before the temple was destroyed. And Isaiah is warning the people, hey guys, you better clean up your act. Okay. And there's a warning, there was a lot of problems there. The Romans or people, right before, like say, Martha, she was living her high lifestyle right up until the end, right up till the siege of Jerusalem. Okay. What does Yeshayahu say? Okay. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says that there are 3 transgressions in Torah that a person should die and not transgress. We know to save a life, if somebody is sick and to drive him to shul, to drive him to the hospital or the emergency room on Shabbat, you put on your Shabbos clothes, you take your car keys, and you say, this is for you, Hashem, and you turn on the ignition, and you save that life. Save that life. If it's an ambulance or somebody else to do it, okay. If there's nobody around, you got to do it. And if you do, a person who does not do this with agility, really quick, then it's the Gemara condemns such a person. You have to do the mitzvah. Hashem gives a mitzvah to save a life. We go and we save a life. Whatever we do, we can allowed to break all the Torah to save a life except for 3 transgressions. They are idolatry, illicit sex, and bloodshed. We're not allowed to spill blood to save a life. We're not allowed to do idolatry. In other words, if somebody says, okay, I've got a cure to the COVID, that you kiss this little statue. No. Okay, better to, the Gemara says, die and don't kiss the statue. And we're not allowed to, we're not allowed, these are 3, illicit sex and idolatry and bloodshed. No. Okay. So you would think, wait a second, maybe the Jewish people committed all 3 and that's why the temple was destroyed. Isaiah says none of that. What does he say? In his chastisement of people, right at the beginning, Chazon Yishel, and we read this right before Tisha B'av, he says like this. Let me read from the Novi and I'll translate it. Chazon Yishel ben Amos, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, Asher Chazal Yehuda v'Yerushalayim, that he saw, his vision, his prophecy about Judea and Jerusalem, Bimei Uziyahu, Yotam, Achaz, Yechezkiyahu, Malchi Yehuda. In the time of Uziyahu and Yotam, Achaz, and Chizkiyahu, the kings of Judea. And he says like this, famous pasuk, Shimu Shamayim v'azinu haaretz. Oh, hear, O heavens, and listen, earth. He made the heaven and the earth witnesses. The heaven and the earth, why the heaven and the earth witnesses? Because they're never destroyed. They're here forever. And he says, don't say that I've got 2 witnesses that aren't live anymore. No, it's the same heaven and earth that witnessed the destruction of the temple are the ones that Isaiah is calling to act as witness. He's making them swear that they're going to be witnesses forever, that the sky and the earth are witnesses. Why the sky and earth are witnesses? Because they're witnesses that when we do Hashem's will, the sky gives the rain, the earth gives the fruit. We don't do Hashem's will, then there's drought, there's difficulty, and there's plague, and there's sickness, and whatever. So this is Isaiah. He says, this is Isaiah the prophet. Hear, O heavens, and listen, earth. Okay. Banim gidalti veromanti ve'im pashubi. I raised my sons and uplifted them. This is the sons, Jewish people. I raised them. I gave them Jerusalem of gold. I gave them money. I gave them Beis Hamikdash. Hashem is saying, I gave my divine presence in their midst. And look what they do to me. Look what they do. They sin against me. Not they sin, and Pashut, they rebel against me. Wow. And now this is the worst. Well, all the curses in Torah, and everything in Torah, this is the worst chastisement in all of Torah. Yada shol koneu v'chamo v'usbalav Yisrael lo yada ami lo itbonan. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey knows its master's feed trough. In other words, the ox could tell you, yeah, that's my owner. Because ox acts different to his owner than he does to somebody else. Somebody else has danger of getting butted by the ox or getting hit. He's not going to do that to his owner. Ox does not do that to owner that feeds him. He doesn't kick. You can take the biggest bull and a dangerous bull. If he's got an owner that feeds him, I know I'm an agriculture graduate. I worked my way through university by taking care of cattle at University of Maryland Experimental Farm. And get a big killer bull. Had this great big Angus bull, big black bull thing, weighed more than a metric ton, weighed 2,400 pounds, and it was dangerous. I used to feed him every single morning and give him grain right out of my hand, and he was gentle. You can see this. He says, the ox knows his owner. Ox knows the person that feeds him. There's a bull knows the person that feeds him. Donkey knows his master's feed trough. A donkey, the same thing. Donkey, the same thing. As a Boshavtik, he used to have a donkey. Okay, that donkey. My donkey's name was Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy, loyal donkey. All that give Jimmy his straw on time and his grain on time. And Jimmy was hungry. At 4 in the morning, he was my alarm clock. Okay, he's starting, he's hungry at 4 a.m, had to get up and go out into the orchards before it got hot. Okay, so Jimmy's the alarm clock. Jimmy's going to start yelling at Jimmy. Then you give him his food. He was there. This is, you see this? It's true. As a farmer, I saw this. Okay, the donkey knows his master's feed trough, but Israel does not know. Israel does not know. You know what Hashem's doing? Hashem's feeding us, and Hashem's giving us every heartbeat, and Hashem is giving us breath. And people are saying, "Oh, where's Hashem? Who's Hashem that I should listen to him? And what are you, primitive? Look at this." And people with their modern agendas and all kinds of stuff goes against Torah and blah, blah, blah. What do you care about society? What do you care what's politically correct? Hashem says something, there's a mitzvah of political correctness? No way. And all this anti-Torah agenda and all this gender stuff, people do whatever you want behind closed doors, but parade Torah transgressions, and that so that little kids in Cheder should say, "Mommy and Daddy, what's that parade? Why are there people walking the street undressed? Why should our kids be exposed to that?" No, but Dad, you're phobic and this and that. What do you mean phobic? Yeah, we're phobic to anything that goes against Torah, especially in the land of Israel. You understand? Oh, wait a second. I mentioned 2 weeks ago. You know what's happening in the land of Israel now? We are in the government just last night. Right now, it's Thursday morning already here. It's Thursday morning, almost 5 a.m. But last night, which is still Thursday night by you, or Wednesday night by you, last night the government said if the COVID doesn't go down in the next 3 days, there's no choice but got to go into another national lockdown. I don't know if the economy of Israel, look what Hashem doing in the economy of Israel. Okay, what happened the first time? The first time the government of Israel was light unto the nations, they locked down this no. But what the government said, they say, "Thank you, Hashem." Said, "We defeated COVID." Oh, I heard that. Uh-oh. You think that COVID is from Hashem? COVID was a coronavirus. Corona is this keter, this crown. That's Hashem. That's the man. You're messing with the crown. You're going to defeat Hashem? And Hashem did. Okay, let's see, doctors, how you doing? The doctors now admit we are powerless. The whole health ministry is about to collapse. Nobody knows what they're doing. It is total chaos. Total chaos. Why is it total chaos in the land of Israel? The moment that the land of Israel goes against Torah, that's it. This is the king's palace, king backyard. You don't do that. Outside of Israel, maybe get away with all kinds of different stuff. Just like in the cow shed, you can get away with things that you can't do. You go to muddy shoes in the cow shed. Who cares if you go with muddy shoes in the cow shed? You don't go with muddy shoes in the king's palace, okay? And you don't come into the king's palace with the shirt you'd wear, milking the goats. No, you don't do that. And it's the thing. So it's from Hashem. My nation doesn't take it to heart. Ami loy bonan. This is the reason of the destruction of the first temple, destruction of the second temple. Isaiah is telling us the Holocaust, the Inquisition, the pogroms, everything my nation doesn't take to heart. Isn't it about time we start taking it to heart? Hashem wants to give us a good life. What does Hashem ask us? What's the message of Corona? The message of Corona is a message from Hashem. That's what Amiloid, but to look around, that's what we mentioned in the preface of our lesson, that everything that happens in our lives is a message from Hashem. Hashem wants us to take it to heart. No, the Corona is not happenstance. And not just in Israel, there's a resurgence, from what I understand, terrible resurgence in Miami, right? In Miami, our beloved brother, sister in danger in Miami, that so many people got sick all of a sudden, a second resurgence. It's all of us. Don't get the message first time. It's time to wake up. And beloved brothers, sisters, put your nose down. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Hashem doesn't want us to go out and, why? Hashem close down the restaurants? No, it's about time that we eat nice, home-prepared, healthy, kosher food. It's good for the body and good for the soul. And not eat the junk out in the restaurants. Yeah, this is very good. This is what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to lead a simple life. And Hashem's closing the stadiums. Now, you don't need stadiums. And Hashem's closing the restaurants. You don't need restaurants. Look what Hashem is doing one by one. Hashem hasn't closed Torah. It closed Torah. Take the Gemara off your shelf. Learn all you want. Learn all you want. I know they're big tzaddikim. I know there's one tzaddik watching this lesson. That one tzaddik, he's taking it to heart. One tzaddik watching this lesson, and he told me this week, he says, guess what, Reb Lazer? I don't watch TV anymore. That one tzaddik. This guy with the guy with the brain, this is the guy taking it to heart. I tell you, that individual, he's not going to get sick. Why is he not going to get sick? Because he understands Hashem's message. Okay, Hashem, I know I used to waste time with TV and web and Netflix and this and that. No more, Hashem. I'm back in my Gemara. Oh, my beloved son, you're going to be blessed. Okay, this is what take it to heart. This is the whole thing of take it to heart. Take it to heart. Take it to heart. The message. How can I be better? How can I be a little bit better? All Hashem wants us to do is what can, from my bodily orientation, throw it over the fence and turn it into a soul orientation. How can I be a little bit more spiritual and a little bit less material? That is the whole message. It's so simple. You don't have to go and to fast for 40 days and 40 nights like Rebbe Tzadok. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights that there wouldn't be a destruction of the temple. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. He was such a perfect tzaddik. Hashem doesn't expect that of us. Hashem doesn't expect you to quit your job and learn Torah all day long. No. But Hashem wants, if you got an hour free in the day, have it open up a Chumash Rashi, learn 2 Mishnayos, learn 2 halachas from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jewish Law. But a little bit better, that's all. Not an hour Torah. How about starting with 10, 15 minutes of Torah every day? Okay. And this is what Hashem wants. Hashem wants, and for a woman, what do you care about the women call you a prude and this and that? And modern, you say this one goes in. What do you care if she goes in the street undressed? It's not what Allah says. Hashem wants you to be modest. Hashem wants you, my beloved daughter, you're beautiful neshama. Your beauty comes from your neshama shining. Okay, when people are doing all kinds of plastic surgery and this and that, fixing their nose and fixing their this and fixing their body and redoing everything and spending all kinds of money. What's going to happen to the money that you spend to the plastic surgery? You're doing that to the man. You go, woo, woo. This is what you're doing this? The whole thing? You know what's going to happen to that? Look what happened to Martha's money. Look what the Gemara is telling us. When we read on Tisha B'av, the Gemara is telling us she threw her money out in the street. It was not worth anything. She couldn't buy anything. She couldn't even buy fertilizer. She could buy nothing. And what's going to happen with that plastic surgery body? In the end, it's going to be fertilizer. Okay? So, and you can live a good life with a crooked nose. I look at New York and my nose looks at Chicago. That doesn't ruin my life, okay? So it's only broken. It got broken. All right. So maybe a woman, but you can still live a good life. Okay, so I'm not going to get a Hollywood movie contract because Hashem doesn't want me to be a Hollywood movie. Lazer, it's not your job to star in Hollywood movies. Okay? Well, Hashem. I'm glad you're laughing, Gennady. I hope you laugh your whole life. Okay. Baruch Hashem. But this is the thing. Take it to heart. Take it to heart. A little bit more spiritual. A little bit more. Put the smile on your face and the neshama. This is what Hashem. That's all Hashem wants from us.